What's up, everyone? Welcome back to FishOfHex. My name is Travis. Today we're going to be talking about Acropower from Two Little Fishies. Now, I've started using this supplement about 2 months ago, and I did some before and after photos to show you guys some of the growth that I've gotten here on the 300-gallon reef. Now, I did make some additional changes with supplementation as well as lighting on the system, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in the video. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, Acropower is an amino acid that claims to aid in skeletal growth within SPS coral, primarily acros. It also claims to help with polyp extension and coloration. So let's go ahead and dive in to this reef tank about 2 months ago and look at some of these before pictures, and then I'll show you guys what they look like today. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with the far left rock structure, and we're going to focus on the very top Acropora and the one that's to the right of the clownfish that loves blocking my camera. So let's go ahead and fast forward 60 days and look at the growth that we have so far. And as you guys can see, the difference there is crazy in the growth. It's night and day compared to what it was 60 days ago. Now, with this Acropora on the right-hand side, this staghorn, that one and one other in the tank, which is a blueberry acro, those two have been with me in the 125 for quite some time, and they seem to be the best growing Acropora that I have. Now, I also have a lot of wild-caught acros in this system, which seem to be taking a little bit longer to grow, but that's exactly how those two were in the 125 a couple years ago. Now, I've also noticed a difference in coloration as well as polyp extension with these particular Acropora, and that began about a week to a week and a half after starting Acropower on the system, so I can definitely say that it does aid in those two aspects. Alright, so the next rock structure we have here, we're going to focus on the very top, which is a blue millipora, and then to the right of that, which is a worldwide corals yellow tip blue polyp, and then to the bottom there, we just have one of those wild caught acros that I told you guys that took a little bit to actually start growing. So let's go ahead and zoom in here, and I'll show you guys, see the difference in the coloration as well as polyp extension of both of those Acropora. When that worldwide corals yellow tip blue polyp came in, it actually came from another hobbyist. It was really dark. It did not look that great, and then after getting it in here, it adjusted to the light and really started bringing up the coloration, and those yellow tips have really started to pop, especially underneath the blues. It looks pretty good. Now, if you move down to the next Acropora, that wild-caught one, it's a type of millie, but I don't really know the name of it. It just kind of came in as a pack of random Acropora, and as you guys can see, it did not start really growing up until the point when I implemented Acropower. Now, on top of that, I also took some advice from a local hobbyist named Nick, where we cut the tip of the Acropora just a little bit to kind of help with that growth, because you could see on both of those rock structures that the wild-caught acros did a lot of encrusting before they started growing upward, and to aid in that upward growth, we just cut the tips of those acros, which helps the coral to start calcifying, repairing that acro, but also promotes it to grow upward, which it definitely works. So if you're having problems with Acropora just encrusting, try that tip, and shout out to Nick for giving me that idea, which definitely worked. Alright, so let's go ahead and move over to the next rock structure, which is by far my favorite, and not only because of the shape, but also because of the different type of acros I have. It's just a lot of my favorites are currently on this rock structure. Now we're going to go ahead and focus up at the top here with the blueberry acro that came from the old 125 that I told you had really good growth, the FishOfHex millie that's here, which again came from the 125, and then we have a staghorn, which is a blue-green stag. So let's go ahead and fast forward to 60 days, and I'll show you guys the growth. And there you go, some crazy coloration and growth differences in just 60 days of using this product, and I'm very happy with it. I mean, that blueberry acro to the left-hand side there is one of my favorite Acropora, and a lot of these acros are growing so fast that I'm starting to cut them, and I'm actually putting them on my website for you guys, so if you want to purchase the acros that I have in this tank, that's where you'll find it. I believe it's under FOH Personal Coral, and you can check that underneath a Buy Coral tab. And I just love this rock structure. I love how the coral's growing. Again, I am trimming it to make sure that they don't kill each other, and overall I can't wait to really see what this turns into in the next couple years. Now here is a side shot of that rock structure just to show the growth of that FishOfHex millipora as well as that blue-green stag to the right hand side. Alright, moving down the same rock structure, we're going to focus on this pink lemonade, which came in as a wild-caught Acropora. Again, I did trim the tips just a little bit about a month and a half ago, and this is the growth that I've gotten so far. Now, the camera just doesn't give this coral any justice. You'd actually have to come here, see it in person to really appreciate how beautiful this little mini colony is. Ask anybody who's come to the house, they'll tell you that this is one of their favorite Acropora within this tank. The yellow tips on this thing, or basically the yellow growth of it, as well as the polyp extension, is out of control, and I can't wait to see this when it's the size of a football. Now moving down a little bit farther on this rock structure to the left-hand side, we're going to focus on some non-Acropower SPS here. We have the Stylophora, which is a purple, we have the Hydrophora, and we have the red digitata. So let's go ahead and fast forward 60 days and show you the growth of these three corals. Now, as you guys can see, there's a pretty big difference in the growth as well as the coloration. Now, I did start fragging out that red digitata as it was getting closer to that chalice. I did take a huge chunk of that chalice out as well, and that's why I'm missing that gap in between those two corals. Now, focusing on the purple Stylophora, this coral actually came from the 125, and it did grow quite well in that system, but there are some differences between how it's growing and the coloration. Now, this tank here, I'm seeing more of a fluffier purple coral, but I'm also seeing the tips where the growth is being more of a fluorescent green, which wasn't happening in that 125. So whatever I'm doing differently here compared to the 125 is definitely making a big difference. Now, moving over to the far right side of the tank, we're going to check out our last rock structure here. And pretty much all the coral, for the exception of the green Stylophora and the red digi, are all wild Acropora. And you guys can see that there's definitely been some growth and better coloration over the last 60 days. Now, the difference is pretty dramatic when it comes to that Acropora to the left-hand side. The blue coloration, the camera, again, just doesn't justify the coloration of this acro, but also the polyp extension is really, really good on that particular piece. Now, of course, the green Stylo and the red digi are going to grow regardless, but they look really good, fluffy, and happy where they are. Now, because most of the Acropora on this rock structure are wild, it's just going to take a little bit longer till they get used to the system and start to grow upward. Now, one thing I do want to mention about this rock structure and the very first rock structure is that I just added about 3 weeks ago the second XR15 over them. So they've been getting about half the par as the other two rock structures in the middle have been getting over the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 months. So definitely adding the additional lighting has also encouraged the growth and coloration of those acros on both the far right and the far left within this tank. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I want to talk about some of the additional changes I've made to this tank. Now, over the last 30 and 60 days, we kind of revamped the entire system after we did our ICP test. So 30 days ago, we checked out the last one and looked at some of the things that I wanted to change. Now, at that point, I started using Brightwell Aquatics potassium as well as their iodine. On top of that, I started using Aquavitro fuel, and all this is on a daily or weekly basis. Now, in the next video, I will go over everything that I'm doing to this tank, from the calcium reactor, my water parameters, as well as what I'm dosing, how much I'm dosing, and how often. So those of you who want to kind of follow along and do what I do here, that video will help you and guide you in the right direction. So anticipate that video in the next couple days. Now, I do want to mention that everything that I currently dose my 300 gallon, I'm also dosing in my frag system. And I've also noticed the same differences in coloration, growth, and polyp extension, not only on the SPS side of things, but also on the soft coral side. The zoanthids look a lot better, fluffier, and are growing pretty darn fast. Now, if you guys are interested in supporting the channel, definitely check out FishOfHex.com for coral sales, t-shirt, inverts. I have gel filters. I have a whole bunch of stuff on that website. I'm trying to add stuff daily, but again, it just takes time to sit down and actually get it done. So if you guys have any questions about Acropower, definitely hit it up in the comment section below. If not, I'll see you in the next video where we talk about everything 300 gallon. All right, guys, peace.